Thank you all for joining this live. If you've been following me for a while, this is a little different format. This is an opportunity for me to bridge my personal and my professional together on my personal Substack. And I've invited a friend of mine, a coworker, Lisa Forehand. And for those of you who may not know, my day job is I'm the executive director of Carolina Jews for Justice. We are situated in North Carolina, and we do advocacy work basically for um, all North Carolinians, but with a Jewish values lens. And as I said before, I'm talking with Lisa about our elections. And before we get started, as a rabbi, I got to bring in the Torah portion for this week, which is Ki Tetzei. And by the way, Ki Tetzei has more laws than or more commandments than any other Torah portion. And most of them are actually situated on how we are to behave around our neighbors or how we are to behave with neighbors. And there's this little line in there, I can't remember which verse it is, but what stuck out to me this week, it's a commandment for us to not be indifferent. And how we are to create a better society and not be indifferent towards the things that we see in our society, which is quite fitting for how our society is right now. And how we are to treat our workers, and how we are to care for people who are vulnerable, and how we are to conduct ourselves honestly, and what our responsibility is for others. So, like, if you are walking around the street and you see something, maybe not ignore it, and because we shouldn't be indifferent in our society. And along those same lines, one of the things that Lisa and I are hyper focused on right now is the elections. And so since we live in North Carolina, this conversation will be focused on North Carolina. And Lisa Forehand is not just a colleague, but she's the lead organizer for Carolina Jews for Justice. And we're gonna talk about that. And so I'm gonna let Lisa introduce herself to you all and go.
Hey, everybody. I don't know who's watching. It feels like, we're in La La Land. I can see you, Sandra, so hi. So as Sandra said, I'm Lisa Forehand, and I am based out of Western North Carolina. So actually, some of the stuff that you'll hear me talk about is not even just North Carolina based, but where I live and what I know best is that part of the state. And I've been with Carolina Jews for Justice since 2021. So, and we began our focus on voting stuff in 2024. So this is we were doing it before, but with real gusto, I would say. This is our second round. So I'm glad to be here.
And did you say where you live?
I said I live in Western North Carolina, in Nashville. So
cool. All right. Okay. So
not a native for 30 years,
Thank you. So Lisa can start the Q&A, and I put in the chat. You can open the chat too if you want to, Lisa. I said to people, feel free to ask any questions, and hopefully we can maybe get to a few of them if there are questions. So Lisa, you said I know you've been doing this election work since 2024. So to figure out phrases. Why are we coming back to this work in such a big way this year, 2026?
Right. I think that I want to be clear that when we talk about democracy protection work, which is what we are focusing on, that that we have never had a true multiracial democracy where Black people are free and all of us can thrive. So when we say protecting democracy, I don't mean that we've had democracy. I mean that we are still working towards that, and we want to be participating in that experiment. We don't want that experiment to go away. And so I think that's the future that we're working for, and globally at CJJ, and we see that working on elections and getting elected officials that might be people that we can work with, that might believe in self-governance, and also getting people involved in democracy, that's the future that we're hoping for, is that people hear themselves, can see themselves, can believe that their votes have voice and power. It's not lost that we have had a change of administration after the last time we worked on this, and believe that there's a slow side to authoritarianism and dictatorship, and that it is our responsibility as Jews, our responsibility as citizens to step up and end, and that silence is as much a vote as speaking up. That we need to not not only participate, we need to participate fully, and it's for us as CJJ, I will say that like voting and democracy, we are a population that votes in high numbers and have always felt a commitment to civil engagement. Um, and so it's a value that unites us as Jews. And so we are in this work because we think it can be uniting, not just for our members, but for Jews in general. And it's a moment where we need all hands on deck. So what better way to be working with people in a moment that needs us to be involved and aware and participate.
Thank you. And so for those, there's more people that have just joined us. And so we're talking about democracy. We're talking about elections in North Carolina, since Lisa and I are based in North Carolina. That's the focus. But some of this also might be relevant to where you're living right now. Um, so Lisa, what is different about the election landscape in North Carolina this year?
Yeah, I think that we do this work, so we're in it every day and we hear about it every day and we learn new things every day. But I think there's so much that has been slowly eroded in North Carolina in terms of our ability, our access to free and fair elections that may not be sort of apparent to everybody that's out there. And so we have seen that slow erasure to our right to participate freely and fairly in the last couple of years. Some of you may remember the Riggs Griffin case where we had a North Carolina Supreme Court race between Justice Riggs and Justice Griffin. And Justice Griffin lost by 734 votes out of 5.5 million. It was a really slim margin. And never happened before, but Griffin actually contested after the fact, after the rules had been laid out, tried to steal those votes and say, actually, no, some 60,000 voters were not eligible to vote. That had never happened before. And I often will say that, North Carolina, people call us a battleground state. We are not a battleground state. We are like a test laboratory. Um, and that's one of the things that was tested. Luckily, that went through the court systems. It was the last race called in 2024 in the country. And Riggs, who won, is now rightfully in their place on the North Carolina Supreme Court. That has been repeated. We are the only state where the auditor, who is the highest ranking Republican official, is now the one that is in charge of Board of Elections. That we are the only state that I know of anyway, I might be wrong, where the auditor has assumed that responsibility. It used to be who was elected the governor would have the right. And so all of our boards of elections are now chaired by Republicans, and we're cherry picked. And so it means that there's going to be implications for us as we go forward with elections, as we go forward with counting of elections. Many of you know gerrymandering. It's not a new term. It's, where you'll see your district be like, look like some puzzle piece instead of what would make the most sense. Gerrymandering in North Carolina has been historic, and not just from Republicans, from Democrats too. And CJJ is nonpartisan, but I'll name that. And we are like the poster child for for sort of gerrymandering abuses, honestly. And so there's been, we're talking about election protection more broadly, and that this current landscape is, we're looking at losses of polling stations. I know out here, Western Carolina University's polling station went away. HBU's, Historical Black Universities, polling stations went away. We've had a lot of pressure to cut down, county by county can do that, to cut down on early voting. And so early voting timetables. And so we are not operating. I just want people to know that the landscape has changed and is changing, and that we're not operating in the same place as we probably have, and that it involves all of us knowing a little bit more and realizing that the only thing that we have to counter that is for us to get involved. Only thing that has changed any of those policies is your voices. The people who are listening, your voices are what can change this. Your participation and your voice and your actions. And so in front of all of that depressing information that I just shared, I hope you'll see that that it's not Pollyanna and it's not like belittling to say every person has a place in this work.
So I want to ask you a follow-up question. This might be in several pieces of the same question, but like for people who may not know what an auditor is, because like I think
Mhm.
many states the elections are controlled by the Secretary of State. And I remember some issues in Atlanta when the Secretary of State was running for oh, a bunch of hearts came up. Thank you, whoever did that. When I said I mentioned that, um,
There's some
when the
Georgians out there.
when the Secretary of State who was counting elections was also running for governor. But for people who aren't following it, what does it mean that the auditor, like, put the auditor in the scale of things for elected officials for people?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding, and this is not my area of expertise, is that the governor used to oversee, and then then the Secretary of State, and for us to have the auditor, which is the next, it's not a normal fit really in terms of supervising boards of elections, and so it's sort of emblematic, if I might just, this is my perspective. I don't, but it's emblematic of a more partisan way that our electoral work is being done. We've seen that on multiple fronts and on multiple levels. And so the fact that it's moved to the auditor, um, and that was a partisan move.
How
Um,
about
just
this is not a
and,
CJJ
yeah.
thing. This is my Substack, so you can feel free to say whatever you want to
Oh,
say.
I'm like, we're not talking about Republicans and Democrats. Um, well, I always represent CJJ, Sandra.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I didn't want to embarrass our organization, but you're not. We're doing this in my personal Substack, so it is not in
yeah,
violation of
yeah.
Bible 3 or 4.
It means, well, so what I'll say is it means having, like in review boards where provisional ballots are gonna be looked at, it means that having the head be Republican means that now there's a Republican majority on most of those review boards, right? So what did used to give the governor, honestly, some, um, power, but it's elected, right? The governor is elected. It meant that the people had elected a certain party. Um, has was shifted because we have a Republican-led legislature. So, um, yeah, it just stacks the deck. I'll just say that. It stacks the deck, in
Yeah.
a way that we're not accustomed to seeing, and that we haven't we've seen rules be broken, we've seen, lots of things that we haven't seen in the past, that we thought were sort of, embedded and protected, and now a lot of that is up for grabs and has been grabbed, honestly.
So, like in a nonpartisan way, I'm going to ask you to answer this in a nonpartisan way.
Yeah.
Why should you care that one party has more control? I mean, obviously you and I have an answer, but I think for people who may not be paying much attention, who think that things are always the same, why does this hurt anyone, regardless of your party that you're on, to know that one party has more control over state elections?
Yeah, I mean, I think, me personally, and I'm not a pundit on this, but I would just say that, um, democracy thrives when there's a variety of opinions. I don't think that that it's ever good, even if it was full Democrat necessarily. It's good when there's discussion, when there's discourse, when there is a coming and a meeting together of people who might have different opinions in different ways, may have the same goals but different ways of getting there. Like to me, that makes for a stronger democratic republic, so to speak. So, the fact that one party is, and I don't think it's reflective when you look at the numbers. The fact that one party is being able to steer, guide, build the ship, do
Mhm.
whatever they want to do with the ship. It doesn't feel true to what a democracy could be. There's always going to be. I mean, I think there's always power, and power can be corrupting, and blah blah blah. In both parties, I want to be both and in this. Um, However, having full control and a veto-proof majority and not following rules and tactics that are at best questionable, doesn't do any of us any good. So that's why people should care because it is, we knock on doors and, I knock on doors and they're like, "Oh, you were here 2 years ago. Nothing's changed for me. Things have gotten worse."
Mhm.
And the truth is that maybe things have gotten worse, but, um that's what I think our elected officials and our legislature control so much of what we participate in on a daily basis. If you have kids in school, if you want your roads fixed, if you want to know what's happening environmentally, and with protections about against zoning or anything, um, that all goes back to our legislature. So many of the decisions. I could be an anarchist and say that doesn't matter. Sometimes I say that, but generally, if we're going to live in this system, that is our voice. That is our power. Is the people who represent us and the decisions that are made.
So, Lee, there's a statement here. I'll read it because I like
Hmm.
it. And their full control is not because voters want them to have full control, but because of extreme gerrymandering of legislative districts. Thank you, Lee, for that.
Yes.
For
Amen,
sure.
Lee.
Yeah. So, um, one of the things that you and I often hear from members of the Jewish community is some concerns and fears about being in multiracial, interfaith spaces. So, can you talk a little bit more about how we organize multi-faith, interfaith, um, multiracial, and the coalitions that we are in,
Right.
like who our partners are?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that we two pieces to that answer. We have partners that are not necessarily faith based that we're working with in terms of election protection work because they've been doing this. This is their lane. This is what they do. This is the votes are cast and they're already moving on to the next thing. This is their bread and butter mission. And so we partner with them, like Common Cause North Carolina. They're a partner of ours, and they are doing voter protection work, not from a faith perspective, but really being at tables that we don't necessarily, we're not sitting at all the time. So Common Cause is someone that we've been working with, and they are also part of what's Blueprint North Carolina is our 501c3 table in North Carolina. There is within Blueprint, there's both a faith table, which we participate in and serve on the executive committee. And then there is also the election protection table, and we also participate in that. And so those are ways that we can work with other organizations in the state and and be doing what they do. So each one of them, some of them have lanes which they are more suited to and more um, they they're well grooved. They've been doing it for a long time. In the So we have Blueprint, and then the Common Cause and Democracy NC is another one that we work with. They do a lot of poll observing. So if you see people with the yellow T-shirts that say 888 our vote, which is the hotline, which I hope you'll remember, I'll say it again, 88888 our vote. I sound like I'm a telemarketer. Um, they are the ones that, show up and observe, and that is really like DemNC is the one that's gonna be doing that training, and so that's what they've done traditionally, that's their lane. We love them, we let them do that. We don't do the training, but we send people gleefully to that lane. You Can Vote does a lot of registration practices, as do Legal Women Voters. Out here in the West, I wanna give a shout out to WNC Votes, which subsumes a lot of that, and CJJ is a member. Interfaith-wise, we work very closely with our beloved siblings at the Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry of North Carolina. And we've been working together with them for a long time. And I'll say out west, we also have the Interfaith Action Network. And for us, as Jews, it is important to be in interfaith spaces, progressive, justice oriented spaces. Not only because we're with people, we know we're not alone, but because a lot of our perspective on this relies on collective liberation, and that none of us are free till all of us are free, and the only way we do this is together, is putting faces and names and having relationships and chopping wood and carrying water together. And so we really love interfaith work. And we work with, non-faith partners too. I mean, I think that as we become more prolific and pronounced and in spaces, I know it's the proverbial like my best friend's black. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we are actually working together, doing things together, coming from similar perspectives, having discourse, and that's really the way we want to show up.
So let's get really practical. So somebody listening right now or later, afterwards, um, is might be thinking, okay, so what do I actually do? What do I do? If our democracy is so messed up, everybody's telling me to be worried about it, or what can little old me do? I mean, I guess people are telling me to vote, but what else can I do?
Right. What I'm asking folks to do is usually to do a little bit of like discernment and soul searching within themselves to say, like, um, what's your lane? What your comfort zone? Some of us really like, when we have postcarding events, I'll just say like we get a lot of people because you're with a room and your friends think alike. And we we all are doing that together and it's sort of insular for lack of a better word. And that is totally fine because postcards have a rate of success as well. So if that's your jam, fine, we're doing postcarding. Others are doing postcarding. Voter registration is another one that probably doesn't require you to get too far out of your comfort zone. You Can Vote does that. And then if you're in the West, WNC Votes does that, where we're going around, you can call it tabling or you carry a clipboard and you're really literally registering voters. That will kick in a little bit further along. Right now, our main focus is poll working. We're pushing people into our partner with Power the Polls because that is a time sensitive thing. So the people when you go to vote, the people who check you in, the people who take your ballot, the people who give you the sticker that says I voted, um, all of those people are poll workers. It's a paid position. If you are free and can do that, North Carolina is historically we don't have enough people signed up for poll protection. It takes 1 million people to make elections work. And so we're putting people into that. That's also non-confrontational. You get trained, you get paid. Um, so as I'm going up the list, poll observers, as I said before, is a presence. And it's not confrontational either. It's a presence where you can be at a polling station and observe. That's all you're really meant to observe. You call people and they will send out whatever needs to happen. So as you get along the line, like, are you okay about phone banking? We have phone banking. Are you okay about canvassing? Going door to door. I mean, I personally love going door to door because I've talked with a lot of people that I would never have talked to, learned some things, exchanged information. So, if you can talk to a doorknob, canvassing might be for you. And there's places to support that. You always do it in pairs. You do it with somebody, usually somebody experienced, somebody not experienced. Um, and then if you are somebody who has a legal background, we are recruiting for um, the hotline, that number, that 888 our vote, 888 our vote. Um, we need people to person that who have legal background. Doesn't have to be lawyers, but like paralegals or something like that. You'll be trained too on the new election laws. And we also are training people for Chill Team with the Unitarian Universalists. And that's folks who feel comfortable doing de escalation, like face to face. So, not all, like when I say to do this personal discernment, not all of us can do that. But if you think you can, we anticipate that we might need that. And thank you, 866. I'm already saying it wrong. I need the sign, obviously, in my yard. 866 our vote. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot of ways to get involved, and I think the piece that is most important is to think about what is most calling to you. Like I don't think I can be in front of people that I don't agree with. Know that about yourself and find your niche because really all of these niches need somebody, and we need everybody in some place. Doesn't really matter which place, but some place. So I would say feel free to reach out to me or you, Sandra, or Tess, who's just joined our staff, and we can connect you. We're working with partners to do all of this, and hoping that you can find community in doing it too.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I think is really important is that I had a conversation with one of our partners a few months ago, and when during the last election cycle, people were volunteering to take people to the polls, and people
Yeah,
asked, "Do I have to take Trump voters to the polls?" And people left when they found out that this was a nonpartisan thing we're helping. It was with a
yeah,
disability rights organization,
yeah,
and so I'm saying that to say, like. when sign up for the things that you're interested in, volunteer for things you're interested in, are things that you want to grow in, but don't feel forced to, if something's not your jam, to not do it. And also be aware that if you're doing nonpartisan things, you might be asked to do things that like in that example I just used, yes, you might have to take Trump voters to the polls, or you might have to take the other parties. You're doing this in support of our democracy to help get people to vote, not necessarily align with a political party. So there's a question in the chat, and I apologize because I can't pronounce the first name, but I think it's Vajla Gertner, and it says, "What is our responsibility? Um, what respons what responsibility do we have as progressive Jews in North Carolina to call out AIPAC's influence in domestic politics?" And my answer to that is that if it's important to you to not have outside money and interfere with local elections, that's how you deal with it. That's how you talk about it. Because if outside money is not coming to support, in our case, North Carolinians, what's the point of the money? And that's my response to that. And I think we should call it out, because if there's interest um, in our state from outside folks that are not interested in our state, that's not helpful to anybody. It's just supporting whoever those people are. Cool. Thanks for the question. Keep the questions coming. And I want to give a shout out to Tess. Tess trainer joined our staff yesterday, and this is really their first day working, and they're already in the chat, like, helping out people. So thank you so much. And hopefully, if you live in our state, you'll get to see Tess. And if you don't live in our state, maybe we'll do more of these. Maybe I'll interview Tess, and you guys can talk with Tess about what it's like to be a young organizer excited about our elections. Because people keep saying that people don't care about our elections, but I know that that's not true. Okay, back to our questions. So let's see. Okay, so someone could volunteer with any of our partner organizations, but why do you think it's important for Jewish people in North Carolina, or Jewish people in general, to do some of this work together with CJJ or another Jewish organization?
Yeah, I sit with that question a lot, and I think the piece that I come down to is that there's not that many of us, and the more that we can build Jewish community, I think about, if you go to shul or synagogue and you are with a group of people, and that feels comfortable to you, like, what would that look like if we exponentially grew that? What would the power of our Jewish community be if we could do this work together? And I don't just mean, so there's unaffiliated folks that clearly might want to be in Jewish community, and other folks that are in Jewish community, but might want to be bigger. Like, how could we really, um, be doing so much more if we did it together? And so, sure, you could go directly to our partner orgs and be doing this, but I think that the only way we sustain this over the long term, past this election into 2028, into whatever comes next, is when we do it together. Is when we come together to do it, and that community and relational work is like the foundation of what we do. And so I'll say that CJJ is building its membership. We are in a place of rebirth into who we are and what we want to be. We have new leadership sitting right here, and keep on the lookout. We are hoping to bring people together in small minions, house parties. They can be local or virtual, because I think what we've seen is that we know we thrive in community when we're doing this work in community, when we're not alone doing this work. I think that's why, No Kings has had so many people, because we want to know we're not alone. And I think as Jews, that might even be more than the general population. So we're looking for members that are always willing to step up in leadership. If you're if you're listening to this, that might very well be you. So reach out to us, because you're seeing the staff right here. And so we've added tests, but we're still small group, and we really need people to be committed to that same vision of coming together in community, and that we can be stronger when we do it together. And we need builders. So I hope that people will hear this and want to do it, want to be doing this work in community from their Jewish values or from their Jewish allied values. We're really like come one, come all, and to participate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So another question I have is, I'm going to ask something I think many people might be feeling right now, which is, what do you say as an organizer? What do you say to someone who cares deeply about our country or cares about democracy, but feels completely overwhelmed by everything? Everything that's happening right
Yeah, it is overwhelming, and I think that we are bombarded every day with it's like whiplash, like what else could happen? And sometimes it's hourly even, by the minute. And so I know it can be overwhelming. Take care of yourself. That's what I would say first, because
now.
we all need to do that in this environment. And to find I went to seminary, and seminary, one of the things that they said was like, listen to what makes your heart hurt. And I would say, like, if you are even thinking that in your home, but you don't know how to get involved, then you're ready. You're ready to jump somewhere. Just figure out where it is, um, and know that you are not alone. I mean, the very forces that we're up against are asking us to live in fear and division, and to separate us, and to test us to check out. It it will only work if we check out. This democracy will fail if we check out. And so we have to call ourselves back in, as uncomfortable as it is, because otherwise, you know, non-democratic forces are winning. And so for us, it's a checking in, continually checking in, recharging, checking in again, and know that that's exactly the intent. That you are not outside of the norm. Despair is intentional. And we have to work hard to not fall prey to that in
Yeah,
what we do and how we show up. And it's
yeah,
not easy. It's really not easy. Like, I wanna just honor what you're saying, because if anybody's listening, it's just really not easy. And, and do what I don't know, Rabbi Sandra plays music, I dance, I sing, like, we have to lean in on joy too. Joy is a form of resistance. Like, don't belittle that. We need that, like, from now until whenever, is to find places where we can recharge and have some joy and get back in the fight. So that's what I would say to folks.
yeah. No, thank you, and I agree wholeheartedly with all of that, and especially with the whiplash. I think that's a strategy to keep us what do you? There's so much out there. What do I focus on? But for me, there's a Hebrew phrase that I rely on a lot. It's la'at la'at, like tiny steps, or one step at a time. And often when I find things overwhelming, just by focusing on a little thing. So like when people talk to me about the environment, for example. This is a real conversation I had with someone like, the planet is going to pieces. What do I do? And I was like, just a little bit at a time, focus on one thing. And if we all focus on the little things that we can do, there's huge, huge changes that can be made. And so like for people in the environment example, like maybe you stop if you gave up meat for one day of the week, or you started recycling, and then you just make little changes, little steps. And so if we all make little steps, I don't know how many people are in our state or how many people are in our country, but can you imagine if we all made one step towards democracy? Because democracy is not going to fix itself. We have to move towards justice, and move towards democracy. How awesome that would be. And I got a few more questions before we wrap up. Lisa, what gives you hope?
Um, I consistently say, like, when we have a postcarding event or whatever else, like, I also need to know that I'm not alone. Like, I may
Mhm.
be organizing people, but there is hope in seeing people showing up. I feel like people are showing up. People are using their voice, using whatever resources and access that they have, to show up and to be present. And so when I talk to people that are in that place, it gives me hope, because I know that I'm not alone, and I know that we, um, literally, there are more of us who believe in a multiracial democracy than there are of the people who don't. And so I know that I'm not alone, and that um, when we can use our collective voice and our collective power, that gives me hope when we come together. And and it's, to me, it's a um, it's a one by one gig. Sometimes I can have one conversation and it gives me hope because there's one more. I mean, you know, like the starfish story. I mean, I wish I could pick up all the starfish, but one starfish is meaningful. Save that person's life, right? So it means that that's what gives me hope. It gives me hope talking to all of you. The people that work with us and the people who are in this work. Um, it really does give me hope in humanity, hope in our ability to be good, and we're created in the image of the divine, and I believe that, and I fall back to that a lot too for hope.
Yeah. Also, by the way, as far as I know, we haven't lost any people in this call. More people have joined, so like that's really exciting. So people are excited to hear you. And so this last question, and please, if anybody has questions for us, please put them in the chat. Um, what is one thing that you want North Carolinians North Carolina voters to know? Like, well, I know you saw it at the beginning, but some people were here at the beginning. So, what is one thing you want North Carolina voters to know? And what is the one thing you want someone listening to us right now to do?
Yeah, I'm going to do micro because we've been talking a lot of macro. So, um, I just want folks to know that, no matter, we've laid out a lot of different things, and there's a lot of different ways to get involved. And at the minimum, just want people to hear, because I'm hearing this too. Like, I'm not going to vote. I don't like anybody that's on the ticket. I don't, like, I don't care. It hasn't changed. Your vote is your voice, and it makes a difference. So if people can leave with one thing, there is, look at your voter registration, make sure that it is clear, that it has your correct address, that you know where your polling station is, um, and vote, and encourage other people to vote. Like, send out a text to your 5 best friends. Are you voting? If they're out of state, are you absentee voting? Do you know that there have been changes to the rules on absentee voting? But like, make sure that you and your people are at the least voting. um, I will say that North Carolina has a history of having elections that have been won or lost by double-digit vote differentials, literally. I mean, for those of you that followed the primary, when Phil Berger, our long-standing North Carolina legislature, it was against another Republican, but the loss was by 23 votes. 23 votes. Like, that's not a lot. In Charlotte, there was a House race between Tricia Cotham and Nicole Sigmund, a beloved at Bethel in Charlotte, and she lost by 213 votes. Um, there's House District 32 where Cohen and Sussman lost by 228 votes. These are not like these are not huge numbers. These are like the amount of people that are in your supermarket in any given day. You know what I mean? Like, this is not a lot of people. So please vote, and know that it's not like, well, my vote doesn't matter. I think it is a power that you have, that you're leaving on the table, and our ancestors, regardless of what your identities are, if you're a woman, if you're black, if you are an immigrant, whatever you are, we have fought for that right. People have died for that right. And so I don't take it glibly that we really need to feel ownership in exercising that right that was hard fought. Um, and to check your voter registration. I should put that in the chat. Um, and then if you're called to more, find your space, find what feels right. Think about what might be a nudge that you're willing to take or not willing to take, but just find a space. And all of it is needed. Really, like, no judgment how you show up or where you show up. And postcards are your jam, do some postcards. If you can be on a chill team and do de-escalation, do that. Like, yeah, find what feels right to you, and vote and vote.
Yeah. All right. And so we're going to wrap this up, and I'm going to have a few words to say, but I want to give you an opportunity to say I don't know, maybe, well, say anything you want to say, really. So closing. Like, where do people find you?
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
and
maybe,
say anything else. You can also close with anything else.
yeah, I can put my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out. And I may, like, and nudge me if I forget. Like, I'm not afraid of nudges. Keep nudging if you don't hear from me and you still want to hear from me. And I uh I want to say that, like, nobody's alone in this. And so we just need to find our place, find our space. And um I just think that this is that in getting into this work, you're joining a movement of folks that want to be in this fight together. And it's just a moment that calls for each of us to show up. Um, North Carolina, like I said earlier, is they think we're a battleground state. No, we're a testing ground, and we expect to continue to be a testing ground. And so who knows what's going to be thrown at us? And we need to stand up and be present. And the only thing that has worked here to stop election interference has been when the people have raised their voices at every level. So, and I mean that figuratively, I mean it literally. Like, so continue to know that your voice, your presence, your calls, your writing, your showing up makes a difference. Um, yeah, and I'm happy to be in touch about how to do that.
All right. Thank you, Lisa, so much for joining us. And I'm going to start in this with what I started with, which is Torah. This I said at the beginning for those who weren't here, Kitite has more commandments than any other commandment, and most of those commandments center around, or many of those commandments center around how we are to treat each other in a society. And so, one thing that it teaches us is also creating a just and compassionate society. That's our responsibility as Jews, is to do that, is to create a just and equitable and compassionate society for all of us. Um, and this happens through the choices that we make and the ways we show up for one another. And like Lisa said, people call North Carolina a battleground state, um, and the testing ground analogy I think is pretty accurate for what can happen or what happens around elections, and democracy across the country. That we are kind of a testing ground. Um, and we've also learned something else, that organized people make a difference. When you work with people and you all organize and you're moving towards justice, you really, really can make a difference. I think sometimes people want to see huge changes, but real changes happen slowly over time, and we have to play the long game. Your vote really does matter. I was with Reverend Barber the other day, and he quoted a figure for how many people did not vote in North Carolina and did not vote in the presidential national elections. And if those people would have shown up to vote, we might have had a different outcome. Your vote matters. Um, your vote matters, showing up matters, helping someone else vote matters. So you can maybe take your neighbor to the polls. Paying attention to what happens at our local board of elections also matters. Um, and and there's a place for everyone in this process. We're all not going to get on a platform and yell, protect our democracy, or speak at a press conference. But some of us can do postcarding. Some of us can do canvassing. Some of us can make phone calls. There's so much work that can be done, and it needs to happen with all of us, um, offering our gifts of volunteering. Um, so find the thing that you want to do and participate in it, making a better democracy. Join us or join your local. There are several organizations across the country that are similar to CJJ. You may have one in your state. If you don't, there's also national organizations that might also be able to help. So find one that you can partner with or work with or lend your time to. And also, you could also, if you're in a synagogue, you maybe talk to your rabbi or staff about who to be in touch with to work with and on elections, because democracy only works when we all show up. Lisa Thank you so much. I work with you. I talked to you. We just had a meeting right before this call, but I set the full transparency. I set this up because I wanted to learn more, and I've learned so much from talking to Lisa. I was like, we need to share this information with other people. So, you all know how to find me on Substack. If you have any questions about this Substack, if you miss part of it, it'll be on my Substack once Substack finishes doing whatever it does to make it better. And so if you ever have any questions about any of this, please feel free to reach out to me here on Substack. If you want to reach out to me professionally, you can do that by emailing me at Sandra at Carolina Jews for Justice. And again, thanks, Tess, for jumping in as our new staff member. And I'm excited to do this work. And I hope that you all will join us in this work either in this state. You can join Carolina Jews for Justice. You could join even if you're not Jewish. So go to our website, carolinajewsforjustice.org, and join and get tapped in. And if you're not in this state and you want to support us, you still can. You can still support us by making a donation if that's something you want to do. But also, if you're not in the state, find a local organization where you are, and I can also help with maybe making that connection if it's needed. But thank you all for hanging out with us, and I'll wish you all early Shabbat Shalom, and have a great weekend, and peace out. I don't have a closing. All right. Have a great day.